What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to this episode of OTA Clips, and we got some big news today. James Harden has been traded to the Brooklyn Nets, and we're here to talk about it. What's up, guys? I'm Griffin Senyek, co-host of Outside the Arena. Today, I got some of the boys with us. In the corner up here on the left, we got Niky making his debut on the channel, and in the bottom, we got Devin making his return. So today, obviously, we're going to be talking about the huge James Harden news that broke a few hours ago from when we're filming this. Obviously, breaking down the trade. Before we get into it, the Nets get James Harden. The Rockets get Victor Oladipo from Indiana. It's a 14 deal. They get Dante Exum from the Cavs. Rodinos Kurucs. I definitely botched that, but he's going to Houston.
Rodios Kurucs. There you go.
Thank you. There we go. We got 4 firsts going to the Rockets. 3 from the Nets, 1 from the Bucks via Cleveland. 4 first-round pick swaps as well. And then Indiana is getting Caris LeVert in a second. And then my Cleveland Cavs are bringing in Jarrett Allen, the big man, and Taurean Prince. So I'm going to start with Niky. You're the new guy here. I haven't been on the channel before. I mean, what are your initial thoughts on this deal? You can go any direction, whichever team. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on this blockbuster deal?
I mean, I see two. I think it's a double-edged sword for each team. But right now, I mean, I think the argument can be made that every single team wins. Beginning with the Pacers, Caris LeVert, great fit. On the same tier as Victor Oladipo, some could say he's a bucket. Oladipo is trying to get max money. I don't think that fits, the Pacers timeline nor their cap. I mean, you get a bucket probably for less than $20 million that Oladipo wants. We'll see that when he gets free agency. The Cavs get a big man. I mean, Drummond's been playing great, but you get like a defensive monster in Jarrett Allen who's been stopping like Jokic and Gobert recently to kind of like fit the Sexland mojo you guys got going on. The Nets obviously get Harden. You get 2, maybe 3 of the best, most talented players in basketball. And then Rockets, you keep Oladipo, who's a stud. He's not the all-defensive monster he used to be, but you get a lot of draft capital and you get a solid player. Moving forward, which fits their team. I mean, he's no Ben Simmons, and I think that's something we can get into later, but he's a solid piece, and they're good enough to maybe be in playoff contention with also a ton of draft capital.
Yeah, I'll follow that beat up. The first team I want to talk about is the Rockets. It's a pretty tremendous job actually by the management. I think because they're able to stay like a competent team for now. LeVert is a little worse than Oladipo, and I'll get into the Pacers side of that in a second. But right now you're looking at a lineup of Wall, Oladipo, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Christian Wood. You've got Cousins off the bench. You've got House. You've got some pieces. I think that's about an 8 to 10 seed, probably playing level team that you just want to be competent. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them, the biggest being they don't have many or any of their picks really, but at the same time, they're staying afloat, getting more cap space, but they have that Wizards pick. They have that Bucks pick. They have 1 or 2 of their own picks coming up, and they have the mother load of Nets picks. So they have put themselves in a good position where they're not totally screwed like they had been after trading 2 picks and 2 pick swaps for Westbrook. So good job by them. The Cavs, I don't know why they're involved. I don't know how they traded it's going to be the Bucks like late first round pick in a year. And Dante Exum, who I don't think plays much. And yeah, they have a lot of centers, but Jarrett Allen's a really good young player, and Taurean Prince is a pretty good role player. So good job by them. Pacers. Look, I mean, I know you don't want to pay Oladipo. I know he wasn't happy there. I know you got a younger player that fits the timeline and is probably a better fit. And as Niky said, is a bucket. I don't like the downgrade, but I think I get the move for the future, and I like the move. Just because of age and contract, like Niky said, he's on a much cheaper deal than Oladipo's soon-to-be max level deal. And for the Nets, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I guess we can hold off and sort of talk about the reward of that.
Yeah, I'll start with the Cavs, I guess. Really good move for them, Obviously, they got a lot of centers there, but Drummond, unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Who knows what happens with him? Allen, he's going to be restricted. So, I mean, they can pretty much keep him no matter what, depending if they like him, Taurean Prince, they needed a forward help, especially at small forward. Kevin Porter's been out all year due to personal reasons. Chetty Osman's been holding down the fort, which, my boy, but the bench right now is weak. We got a ton of injuries. So they need to make this move. Honestly, they're a team right now that's like it's 5-6, 5-7, something like that. Keeps them afloat for maybe a little bit longer. For the Pacers, I mean, you guys kind of covered it perfectly. Oladipo, not really happy there. Pacers not going to really be able to pay him that money. They didn't want to pay him that money. They get a great player in Karis LeVert, who's, young, talented, second round pick, whatever with that. Rockets made out super well. I mean, you've talked about, a guy in James Harden who's, expressed for months now how frustrated he is, how badly he wants to be out. I mean, you heard even the announcer saying last night, it looks like he was eating the meal before the game. I mean, he's not really in shape. It doesn't look like. He's still playing great. He's averaging, 25, 10 assists, but, he didn't care, comments last night's game really, I think, is what, ended it. Boogie Cousins said it best, it's really not something you can be doing. But, to get their picks back, to get the pick swaps, their future's back pretty much. You get a good kid in Oladipo who, if you do resign, good for them. But if you don't, you're freeing up salary space, which they need. Dante Exum, I mean, he's hurt right now. Same with, I don't know what Crux is up to, but, those guys are good. And then, for the Nets, we haven't really talked about it too much. So I'm going to flip this one to Devin, obviously, because, you said you got some big thoughts here. But obviously now, Kyrie, Harden, KD, they still got Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, DeAndre Jordan, to name a few of the other guys there. But they traded a lot of their depth away. I'm going to ask you this question, Devin. Do you think this deal was worth it for the Nets? And, I mean, if so, who can really stop them right now towards the championship, if you think that?
So my initial is it worth it is going to be no. But that can be yes if they win a championship or obviously more. And I understand where you're coming from with the depth, especially with the Dinwiddie injury out for the year. So they're not, it's not like they were just swimming in depth quite as much as I felt like they were before that injury. But it's less about that because this is still a championship level team. You still have Jeff Green, you still have DeAndre Jordan, Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, Bruce Brown, like some guys who you can play. I don't think that's quite the issue. Obviously, you want to have Karis LeVert if you could and Jared Allen, but I don't think that's the issue. It's really just that, you saw Kyrie and KD. This hasn't been the best fit when they've been on the court, and Kyrie hasn't quite been on the court. Harden's had troubles playing even with Chris Paul, who's regarded as a very, very unselfish teammate. So, I mean, as much as I love these three guys as talents and think they're all really, really great and talented players, it's just scary. I think if they can figure it out in some semblance, even if they just have good chemistry and none of them are super selfish, even if their defense is like bad, I think they can still win the championship. I think it's really, if they're playing to their level, it's really just between them and the Lakers. But risky move. Sean Marks has been known to do that. This is what the Nets' MO has been since they've gotten KD and Kyrie. And I mean, I like the move. They're trying to win a championship, but boy, could this backfire. Especially with the looming free agency of Harden, Kyrie, and KD in the somewhat near future, where it's not guaranteed like they're going to be here for 4 or 5 more years.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Niky?
I mean, for me, the biggest problem with the Nets, even before this deal, has been their defense, right? Like they've not been able to stop a team, whether it be on the interior or the perimeter. I think losing Jared Allen, who like in his recent games has been able to like not completely stop, but like stop sort of. I mean, 2 of our best centers in Jokic and Gobert. So they lose a big piece in there, and DeAndre Jordan is a comparable defender, but nothing special. I mean, I think they'll have enough shots to go around for their big 3, and I think there has to be putting Bruce Brown into the starting 5 and running a bit of small ball could work to maybe get that defending, more playmaking aspect, which kind of makes up for the Dinwiddie injury. And then you run like Luau Cabarro, Joe Harris, Jeff Green, Shamet, Tyler Johnson in the second unit. See how that works just to get some defense. KD's been a better defender. Harden's an underrated defender. So I think that it is a bit of an overreaction. But I like it for the Nets. I mean, if they Boston, even if they lose to the Lakers 3 times, they have Harden for a year and a half with a player option at the end. So if they lose 3 times to the Lakers in the finals or whoever, I think it's worth it. But if they don't make one, if they don't make 2, then it's not. But I have faith they'll at least come out with 1 ring.
Yeah, I think for this deal, you got to win a ring for it to be worth it. I mean, you've just traded. This is very similar to what they did with Garnett and Pierce and all those guys. They traded all these picks away, and obviously, I mean, you're looking at some of the picks. I mean, 2026. I mean, who knows what their team is going to be in 2026? 2022. You expect that to be a late one. 2024. Who knows? Even with all these free agencies, so you don't know what these picks are going to be. 2022 should be whatever, but. I mean, still, it's a risky move, and I think the problem is just, Devin kind of talked about it, is the chemistry. I mean, there's been already looming issues. Kyrie Irving, he's been away for personal reasons. He's been, now he's been seen, maskless at parties and that kind of nature. You heard Stephen A. Smith today even say he should retire. I mean, people are really, losing with Kyrie, and I don't know what's going on with him necessarily, but I definitely think this will help potentially bring him back to the team. I think he wants to win, and now you're getting your chance to be one of the top dogs in the East. But I also think it could be maybe it's an indication that, hey, we might move on from Kyrie Irving and really build around James Harden and Kevin Durant here. I mean, those two guys are they're Kevin Durant. Honestly, people will talk about he's an interesting personality. I think KD's shown this year that he's here to play. He's not here to do all this off court junk. He's played and he's played well. He's not he's not causing all these off the court issues like Kyrie and Harden per se. So I don't think KD's going to be a problem. I think KD, we saw him coexist with other stars. He's kind of been with a bunch of stars, and he's coexisted. He's played with Harden before, so I think that pairing is going to work. I think it's really just Kyrie Irving right now could be the potential issue and potentially kryptonite of this team. He could be the chemistry issue, or he could if he's on board, if he's with it, this team could be one of the best, if not the best in the league for years to come. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. But that's my thoughts. I don't know if you guys have anything else on the Nets specifically, but yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if I can just jump in quickly.
Yep.
I've spent a lot of my basketball life hating Kevin Durant for his decision to join the Warriors in 2017. But if you really think that he's the issue more than Kyrie Irving with this Nets team, I just think you're mistaken, because KD has said some questionable things to reporters. He's had some weird interactions. But like you said, at the end of the day, he's here to win. He's played with stars. He's won. I don't think that's the issue. I think, honestly, like you said, Kyrie is the issue. I think KD and Harden on their own are going to play really well while Kyrie is still in quarantine. And I think, the Nets are going to be like, should we trade Kyrie Irving? Should he retire? Would they be happy if he were to retire? I mean, I doubt that actually happens. I doubt he just retires. He's a little bit crazy, but maybe not that crazy.
You never know.
You never know with Kyrie, though. So I'm not really going to sort of just guess what's going to happen. But what I will say is Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, Amari Stoudemire, Jacques Vaughn, whoever else is on that coaching staff, they're going to have themselves a hell of a task. But if they do succeed, I mean, that's what you do. That's how you build this culture, and that's how you win. Props to them. It's a ballsy move.
Yeah, well, I want to talk now about the effect this has on the league. Specifically, we'll start in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Devin, you're a big Sixers fan. This is a potentially huge move here. Really could affect it. Obviously, there's Sixers involved, but they obviously didn't end up with James Harden. Probably for the better if they were going to have to give up Ben Simmons. I think that was definitely the right decision on their end to not part with him. But I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Are the Nets, it really seems like they might be instant favorites. We don't know, what the chemistry and how everything will work out. But how do you guys think? Oh my goodness, how do you guys think this shakes up the East? Obviously Milwaukee's still there. How does this affect it specifically with Philly and Milwaukee?
You can go ahead, Niky, if you'd like.
I mean, first thing, like when I was hearing Mark Stein and Shams talk earlier, I thought Harden to the Sixers was definite. And I think if it was Simmons for Harden, I think that helps both sides. I think adding Tyrese Maxey, depending on how he's been playing the last 2 days, was the defining factor in the rejection from the Sixers, which is why they shifted to the Nets. I mean, I think we can all agree that the Nets on paper are the favorites. I'm not a big Celtics guy. I don't like they're able to defend on the inside. And I don't think the Bucks are capable of playing in the playoffs once Middleton decides to be Michael Jordan. So right now, I think it's between the Sixers and the Nets to who can come out of the East. Ultimately, I think they're both worse than whoever comes out of the West, assuming the Lakers do. But I think it's going to be a good matchup between these two teams because you have two teams who've been pretty good defensively, but can still put the ball in the bucket. KD averaging 38 and 7, Embiid playing MVP type basketball. Great supporting cast. But I think it's definitely between those two teams to come out of the East.
Yeah, Dev, what do you think?
I mean, the first thing is I don't think with the amount of assets and all the moving parts that the Sixers get this trade done without getting Ben Simmons. Without giving up Ben Simmons. And as much as I can go on and on about how much I hate him and how he doesn't try in non-nationally televised games and how he's just stat padding and how he hasn't improved in 4 years. All that said, he still has everything he needs to be a superstar now. So I think he's just too valuable to give up for a 31-year-old player with clear character issues, clear fit issues with 1.5 years left on his contract. So as much as I would have loved Harden for this season, and if it worked, I think we'd probably be the favorites out of the East. I'm a little bit happy. I'm still hoping there's room for a Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, and picks for Levine type trade, or potentially Tobias Harris, Matisse, and picks for Bradley Beal. I think there's a lot of different options. I think those two would help more as a second scorer, third overall option, and just fit in well with our system instead of taking over the system. So I'm a little bit happy about that, but I think the East is going to be really interesting. I mean, I think the Pacers are a good team, but I think in the playoffs they're going to struggle. They traded away Oladipo. I think they're decent, but I don't see them really getting out of the first round. The Nets are obviously insane, but they should if they should be able to beat the bad teams in the East. I think they'll figure it out. I think they'll be in it for the tough playoff series. The Heat, they haven't played well this year. I'm not sleeping on them. I think they can still make a run. The Celtics, I'm scared about their interior defense as well. They've always seemed to play well against Giannis and Embiid. I mean, there's no clear favorite here because every team really does have some sort of weakness or playoff woes or coaching issues or whatever it is. So I'm actually I don't even have a clear favorite, to be honest, right now. I guess maybe the Celtics, as much as crazy as that sounds. I just think they have the least weaknesses once Kemba comes back. But a lot of things can still change. It's still super early in the year. It's going to be a weird year with COVID and if there's going to be fans of the playoffs and how the seeding works out and injuries and everything. So it's too early to say, but I think any of those 5 teams between Celtics, Nets, Bucks, Sixers, and Heat could all come out of the East.
Yeah, I think the East is it's going to be really interesting. I mean, we've seen, obviously the LeBron era in Cleveland and Miami. It really wasn't too competitive now, but it looked like the West was going to be super competitive, and now all of a sudden the East has all the superstars. They got James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, Tatum, Ben Simmons, Embiid, all these guys, Jimmy Butler. So the East is going to be super interesting. I think like I agree with you. Any of those teams can come out. It's really they're all going to make it. It's just going to come down to who can win in the playoffs. And I do like the point that Niky brought up. The Bucks haven't proved they can win in the playoffs, so I'm not going to say the Bucks are now. Celtics have faltered in the playoffs as well. It seems like they always get to the conference finals. They can't get it done there. Philly hasn't had the best run, but they look a lot better this year. I think they made some really strong additions. They got young guards, Maxey, Thybulle, who have been great for them. So it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, I think on paper, everyone will be blown away and be like, oh, the Nets are favorites here. But, we don't know how they're going to play. You can't say this team is a for sure lock to go to the NBA Finals when, we have no idea what's happening. We have no idea if Kyrie's playing. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the Brooklyn Nets. But, crazy deal. It shakes up the whole NBA. Talking about the West here, we can even flip to the West here. Could the Rockets contend? It doesn't seem like it, but out of the West, it really looks like it's Lakers, Lakers to run away with this thing potentially. But who knows what's going to happen? The NBA is, it's been wild. What a day. James Harden traded the Brooklyn Nets. Who would have thought if someone told us, a year ago that, all these crazy things would happen, that James Harden would be, a Brooklyn Net. I don't know what I would have believed.
And Westbrook on the Wizards too.
Yeah, Westbrook on the Wizards. I mean,
Yeah, Oladipo on the
Incredible
Rockets.
sport.
it's incredible. It's crazy how fast things change in the NBA. I will say that. I mean, I think it's unlike any other sport.
Oh yeah.
It's constant. You know, you don't see that in football. You don't see that in baseball. You don't see that. You just don't see, superstars being traded at that level. But
Yeah.
crazy. You boys got anything else to say, or what are you thinking?
I'll just say something quickly about the West now that you bring it up.
Yep.
It's a complete mess of teams. I mean, because you really what team really can't make that top 10 team play-in game? I mean, every team right now, I guess with the exception of Minnesota and Memphis, just because they've been dealing with injuries and they're going to continue to. But I think once even they get back, they're pretty good teams. I think Houston is going to be about a 500 team. I don't think that's going to be enough. New Orleans is about a 500 team. Sacramento's meh. Oklahoma City's meh. But then you look at Denver, Golden State, Dallas, Portland, Phoenix, Jazz are all pretty good teams. Then you have San Antonio's kind of meh. And then the Clippers and the Lakers, I think, are still the two best teams in the West. As much as I have, sort of been thinking that the NBA sort of crowned the Clippers too fast last year, and that's obviously turned out to be true. I still think they're true contenders, and I think they might even have the second best chance to win the finals.
On the West, I mean, I've never had faith in the Clippers. I don't think they're anything special. I think they'll continue to be a second round team. But like you said, I mean, the Nuggets are what, the 10-9 seeded 5 and 6 right now.
I think they'll figure it out.
They have the ability to be a top 3 seed. That play-in is going to be incredibly interesting. I don't really have faith in the Pelicans. I mean, some MVP Steph seems to be back. The Kings are fun to watch, and every time out Greg Popovich. Anything can happen. It's the NBA. So it makes it interesting. But I think
it's also going to be an interesting year just because of COVID and how that affects the records. So could be seeing some surprising teams in the playoffs.
I'm predicting Sixers-Lakers.
Sixers-Lakers. What about you, Dev? If you had to make a prediction right now.
I think I'd go Nets-Lakers. I just think the Nets are too talented. I think it could go south, but I don't even know how you begin to try to stop them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like the Nets right now are, until we've seen them play, you got to kind of just look at it and say, wow, who's going to stop this team? But we'll see what happens. But that will do it for this episode of OTA Clips. Make sure to check these guys out. I'll link their socials down below. If you haven't already, subscribe, and comment, and as well as subscribe to our main podcast, Outside the Arena. Put a link for that below as well. And yeah, keep staying tuned for breaking news. That stuff is coming out on this site. So stay tuned, guys. So take it easy.